I'd like to reconvene the meeting of the St. Mary's County Board of Education for Wednesday, January 26, 2022. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
I have a second.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion is carried. We will begin with board reports. Judy.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I have a few things to talk about tonight. First, I want to talk about the ski trip I just went on with the LEONARDTOWN High School Ski Club. We traveled 11 hours to Killington, Vermont to take on the Beast of the East. We spent 3 days at the resort, and it was filled with skiing, snowboarding, and very expensive lodge food. My breakfast was $20 every morning, so yep. This was my first time skiing, and I actually ended up getting lost on the mountain on the first day for 2 hours. At the end of the trip, I got voted most likely to get lost and most likely to be late to the bus. If anyone is hesitant to go on their school ski trip, I encourage you to go, as it is such a fun opportunity. And it just goes to show that SMCPS is not all about academics. We like to have fun too. Now on to my student member news. Today, the Superintendent Student Leadership Advisory Committee held their January high school meeting at the James A. Forrest Tech Center. Our focus was on engaging and motivating, but specifically on how students best learned, their personal efficacy in the classroom, and what they wanted to share with teachers to improve upon classroom practices. I had everyone take a left brain, right brain, or mixed brain survey to give the students more insight into how they are specifically wired to learn and think. We also discussed how different subjects and classes in school require different skill sets that hemispheric specialties might aid in. It was a great discussion, and we will be taking the feedback we received and compiling into a presentation to be shared with principals, who will share it back to the teachers. Finally, I'd like to use my time for my board report to talk about a cause that I deeply care for. It actually comes straight from our school system and our community. SMCPS 2021 Maryland Teacher of the Year, April Ryan, took it upon herself to create a Change.org petition calling upon the Maryland State Highway Administration to install preventative netting on the Thomas Johnson Bridge. I'm asking that everyone please share, sign, and donate to this petition. As someone in this community who has been impacted by suicide, I urge that preventative netting be installed to reduce the loss of life. As Ms. Ryan said, just one loss of life is one too many. I hope our local elected officials are hearing of this news and are aiding our community in this cause. Thank you, and that is all for my board report.
Yesterday I attended King's Christian Academy, and I represented Post 221 along with 4 or 5 other colleagues, and we presented a kind of a narrative on our country's flag. And this is a little comic book, I guess you would call it, about 7 or 8 pages. I'm going to leave this here if somebody wants to see it. And it goes through the historical evolution of the development of our American flag. We had first, second, and third graders attending our group. We also gave the kids a ruler with pictures of all of the presidents up through Trump. I guess we don't have President Biden yet. So it was, the kids, I thought, they had an enjoyable visit with us. And I had never been to King's Christian Academy. I was very impressed with the school. And faculty were very appreciative of our efforts.
Well, I am looking forward to going to the 62nd Annual St. Mary's County Science and Engineering Fair. I look forward to that every year. These students, when they present their projects and stuff, they are so above my head. I love going and listening to them and them talking about their internships. I hope that we don't have the 26 inches of snow or whatever it is that might be coming on Friday, so.
We'll see.
Let's see, last week I sit on the committee, or on the May Board of Directors, so we had our meeting, a lot of discussion about Kerwin and a lot of the bills and everything that's coming forward in the legislature. Friday was the big quad game between Chapticon and Leonardtown, so I was in the concession stand for 4 hours. That was quite interesting. Let's see, tomorrow I am one part of a panel before the House Ways and Means Committee on school resource officers and school security employees in Maryland Public Schools. So Delegate Atterbury is the chairperson, and she has asked for a briefing on what different school systems do regarding training of both our security employees and what the SROs go through. So as a sitting member of the subcabinet for the or the advisory board to the subcabinet for the Maryland Center for School Safety, I will be in that role tomorrow. So that is all I have.
Thank you. I attended the virtual Dr. Martin Luther King Remembrance at St. Mary's College of Maryland. The keynote speaker was my University of Maryland College Park professor, Dr. Mary Frances Berry. Her speech focused on us asking ourselves this question: what will I do to make the world better? The Chapticon Peace Pipers delivered a beautiful performance. Spring Ridge Middle School Rhythm Club, under the direction of Miss Bonnie Bevins, gave a spectacular musical tribute on their rubber tubs. On Sunday, I attended the in-person performance of the Southern Maryland Music Conference Tri-County Honors Chorus Concert at Calvert High School. The superintendent was in attendance, Dr. Smith, and
Miss Lisa Bachner.
Yes, Lisa Bachner.
Lisa
She
there
was
with
there.
us.
Yes, and we had a great time. The middle school chorus was under the direction of Christopher Fox from Howard County Public Schools, and the high school chorus was under the direction of Paul Head from the University of Delaware. Special thanks to all the middle school and high school chorus directors, event organizers, and the supervisor of music and fine arts. Congratulations, students. You did a fantastic job. It was an excellent performance and a wonderful day to spend a Sunday afternoon. Thank you.
It seems my lot is to participate in lots and lots of Zoom meetings. And so last week, I co-chair the data subgroup. Dr. Jaffers, I always think of you. Data subgroup for the Council for the Advancement of School-Based Health Centers. And so through the Kerwin legislation, all the school-based health centers in the state are moving from joint oversight by MSDE and the Maryland Department of Health to completely being under the Maryland Department of Health. And so we are trying to help the Maryland Department of Health understand the path going forward, and I'm very grateful for the fact that they are very welcoming of our input. And so it was a very interesting and timely meeting.
Well, so far as an update goes, I mean, boy, we've already kind of hit some of the highlights. SMCPS on Twitter, please make sure that you are following us on Twitter. We are having virtual events as well as in-person events. We have swimming, we have wrestling, we have basketball, we have some performances live in front of others, and of course, then we had the larger Tri-County Honors Concert for the first time in the past 2 years, and that was really wonderful. It was great, and the performances, Mrs. Washington, I have to agree, they were lovely. They were moving. The talent of this Tri-County area, that's as good a choral performance as you're going to see anywhere. The Forest Center virtual, they did their open house virtually on January 20th. And I know some people might have been disappointed because they like to get in and travel throughout the building. But if you've been to the traditional open house, we pack 1,000, 2,000 people in there. It is absolutely wall to wall. So we did it virtually again this year. Went very well. All the resources are available. They have you can get to the resources from our webpage, from their webpage. You can go through. You can still do a whole virtual tour. You can go through and see all the promotional videos, and you can start your application if you're so interested in coming to the Forest Center for next year. They already have 451 applications as of today, so people definitely went there. They attended. They had over 304 people do meet and greets. So these are like little Google Meets that they're setting up specifically so people can meet and talk to the instructors and hear specifically about the program. They're going to do another meet and greet, I think, in a couple of weeks. And they had over 1,200 people come through the virtual Tech Expo program visit. So very successful way to go through it. I know that it is disappointing not to have everybody in person, but given where we were with the spread, we had to make a decision, and so that's the decision that we made. The Becca Scholarship Fair is also being done virtually this year. That is tomorrow. You can access it from the Becca website, from the school system website. There's all the information there. The one thing that they will encourage is to go to the Becca site and start your common application right now. So you can work on it, it auto saves, you can go back to it, it auto saves, so that you're ready to then make sure that you have your submission in the second week of February to be considered for any one of the $150,000 worth of local scholarships that's available for kids as they pursue post-secondary goals. And it can be anything from a traditional four-year school or a two-year school or a technical trade school. There are a lot of scholarships available. Please don't leave that money on the table. As somebody who has 3 boys, any penny helps. Every penny helps.
Can I have one thing?
Sure.
So the delegate and senatorial scholarships are also open. I know
Yes.
that they went out in the s'mores, at least they did for Senator Bailey and Delegate Crosby.
Yep.
They are going to have a Zoom session at the beginning of February. Both Senator Bailey will have one and Delegate Crosby will have one. Their word is that the money that will be available to the delegation is much more than it has been in years past. So once you get, on the Senate side, once you get a scholarship the first year, it is automatically renewable each of your 4 years. The delegates, you have to apply every year. So, and I know on the Senate side, it is, as Scott said, it's going to be for a college, trade, or a community college. So even if you're not going to a traditional 4-year and you're going to a trade school, please put in for it because the money is available for you.
Yes.
It has to be Maryland-based, so out-of-staters, sorry. It has to
Stay
be
in Maryland.
Yeah, stay in Maryland.
Well, isn't it also, though, if you are going through a program that is not offered in a Maryland school, then those scholarships can be used as long as...
Correct, and
It's-
that has to be approved by MHEC, so,
Right.
yeah, but yes.
The Maryland Higher Education Consortium. Yes. Awesome. So we had the January Slack meeting. What a great group of student leaders from all 3 of our high schools in Fairleigh Academy. It's Dr. Marr. It's one of our favorite things in the world to do is just spend that time interacting with young people, and most importantly, recognizing that when you engage with a high school student, they do know how they learn best, and so we need to make sure that we're engaging in that great conversation and carrying that back and working with teachers and making sure that their time with us is as meaningful as possible. Geez, join our team. Now, I was deeply disappointed when I asked all of the Slack students after we talked about all of the things that how to make teaching better and how to make those classrooms really work and how important that relationship is. And we talked about like what an incredibly challenging job teaching is, but how rewarding it is to work. I said, so hands up, who's going to be a teacher? How many hands went up there, Miss Wynn?
Sadly, 0.
None hands.
But across the hall was the teaching academy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I could have gone over there, and I did go over there earlier to talk to Ms. Chu and several of the teaching candidates that were there. We need to be working with our children to recognize what an unbelievable, artful profession teaching is. It is the profession that makes all the other professions possible. If we're not investing in that foundational profession, everything else is then in peril. And so I have to tell you, when I looked across that room, I saw at least 15 people that would be the most excellent teachers. And I'm going to devote myself, several of them were freshmen, so I'm going to devote myself to help them see what a wonderful path it could be. And then one day they could be sitting here with a PowerPoint clicker and going through onto the next slide. So we need everybody. Please, if you're looking for employment, boy, do we have an opportunity for you. COVID data, boy, there's a lot of numbers, and we are very, very busy. We continue to be very, very busy. The busiest was the 9th through the 15th, so there were 334 cases, and there were 51 faculty and staff who tested positive. By and large, we are seeing people who test positive move through the illness, some very lightly symptomatic. Some people become quite ill, but everybody seems to be moving through the illness and returning, and it's a very hopeful thing. And all the models that we've seen, it would appear that we are peaking, and hopefully then we'll start to find our way going down. Across the system, we have distributed thousands of KN95 masks for staff. Dr. Brewster rented a 26-foot U-Haul monster truck like you were going to move all your stuff. She went and rented it, and then she drove it up to the distribution center and packed it full of over 80,000 KN95 masks and drove it down and pulled along the back there, back here, and we scurried out and got the boxes. And all hands in St. Mary's County. Anything we can possibly do to keep our people as normal in their lives as we can. So masking is still the word of the day. Vaccinations and boosters. If you haven't been vaccinated, please consider getting vaccinated. If you haven't been boosted, you already got vaccinated, why not go get boosted too? Make yourself as safe as you possibly can so that we can see these numbers go down even further. And then ultimately we can all find ourselves at the end of this year as we celebrate Judy walking across a beautiful stage in the middle of unbelievable stadiums. We'll all be maskless, and won't that be a beautiful and wonderful day? And boy, I'm sure looking forward to it. So here we are. We are done with the second marking period. We are now in the third marking period. We are in the month of February. As we go through, we will be directly. I mean, we just got a couple of days, and then we'll have snow over the weekend, and then we'll be right back at it. We have a budget work session next Wednesday where we will be sharing all of the most up-to-date information we have as far as state funding and local funding, and making modifications to the budget to then align to the resources that we believe are available. No school on Friday on the February 4th, as it is a professional day for all staff. We have a no school on the February 21st, that Monday, that's President's Day. It is also a possible snow makeup day. So we have one snow day left, so we can have one day where we can have a snow day, but if we then have a snow event and it requires 2 days, that President's Day could be used as a makeup, and we would have to then have that happen by the board meeting. So we'd be telling people that we're doing the makeup. And then at the end of the week, or the end of that, the 25th of February, it's early dismissal for professional responsibility. So much afoot for the month of February. January has been something. 2022 coming in like a lion. May it just settle down so it leaves like a lamb. That's what we want. So lambs and lions. So with that, so ends my remarks, and let's see what else we have. Thank you, Chairperson Bailey.
Okay. Are you sure that's it? That's all you have? You're good?
That's all I got.
All right, let's see. We don't have any recognitions tonight. We have 2 public hearings, the first of which is the High School Program of Studies for 2022-2023. Do we have any comments?
No.
Okay. So I see no one else in the room other than our own staff and admin people, so therefore I will assume that we will close that public hearing. Once again, if anyone still has comments, we can still accept them through email. And from what I've seen, I don't think we've received anything yet on that.
No.
Okay, so our next item then is, speaking of weather, 2022, 2023, and the 2023-2024 school year calendar recommendations. Do we have anyone signed up for that?
No.
Okay. And once again, I see no entries to our room to speak. We have had a few emails. I think the second reading of that will be at the next board meeting. So if you do have comments, please send them in via email. I know there's been some discussion on social media, but the email would be preferable. And actually then it becomes part of our record. So, all right. So both of our public hearings are now closed. And we can move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Okay. Doing a great job over there, Jay. Thank you. Okay, so we have no public comment this evening either, so we will move directly to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda, which tonight consists of the approval of minutes for January 13th, 2022, personnel teachers. There are no A&S appointments, so.
All right, may I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, tonight we have no action items either, but we have 2 informational items. So we will first have the Comprehensive Assessment Program Overview and Plan from Mrs. Bachner and Dr. Jaffers.
Good evening.
Good evening. Before we start this, can we just set the stage so everyone is completely clear? So, testing was suspended during the fiscal year, or during calendar year 2020, correct? Because of the pandemic, right? And then we didn't test anyone through the Maryland State Assessment in 2021. So we started testing in the fall of 2021. So, and the students sat for the tests that they had missed either during the 2020 or the 2021 school year. Is that correct?
Well, okay, that's,
I just want to set the stage so everyone understands, because there is a lag between the student and the grade level that they are in and the test that they are taking, which has not happened before.
so I would say that's affirmative, and I think if we needed a graduation, we needed a test on file, then those students would actually sit for some sort of assessment in the
Right.
fall 2021. Yes, correct.
Okay. So just so everyone's clear, there is a slight lag in the test that you took and the grade level that you were in. You were tested on prior knowledge and prior years of instruction, correct?
In the fall of this year,
Correct,
which
yes.
we never,
Right.
testing is done in the spring
Yes.
traditionally.
Right. Okay, just so everyone's on the same page before we start throwing out a bunch of
Yeah,
numbers.
and I think it's
items.
important that it's taken Lisa and I a long time to get our arms around all this, because you're right, a 4th grader took the 3rd grade test in the fall, and I think it took a lot of conversation and discussion. So yes, I think it's good that we set the table, so
Right,
yes.
okay,
thank
all
you.
right. So don't mean to rain on your parade there, but just,
No raining.
Just snowing.
Snowing.
Snow.
And I think it's good that we set the stage like that. So, as you say, due to COVID-19, MCAP and MESA assessments for spring 2021 were postponed until the fall of 2021. And there was no, in March of 2020, we went all out, and there was no testing in that calendar year, as you say, or school year. So yes, that, when I say that school year, for that spring of that particular school year. The second bullet is very important. It's students in grades 4 to 8, students had completed Algebra 1, English 10, Biology. They took the MCAP/MESA assessments in the fall of 2021. And these assessments measured performance from the previous school year course. So again, the 5th graders took the 4th grade ELA and math test. The 8th graders took the 7th grade. You know, we had 6th graders take the 5th grade science test and also the 5th grade ELA and math. So yes, that's exactly how we have to think about it. We had students now in high school that took Algebra 1. They could have been a 10th grader or 11th grader, agnostic of year. If they took the course in Algebra 1 the year before, then they sat for the fall 2020 assessment. And I believe it was those that passed the course successfully that actually participated in the diagnostic or fall diagnostic administration. The last bullet is another sort of nuanced statement. And on the back end, it's the data wonks on the back end that are concerned about this, that the MCAP assessments were abbreviated and as a result were not scale scored. Henceforth, they will all be scale scored. Heretofore, they have all been scale scored. So this is a unique year that we have to set in the back end. We have to set it as its own data screen. So that's our issue. But again, because of all these nuances that were involved with testing, you can see it's caused quite a lot of consternation. The high school MISA tests, however, were scale scored, and that's going to be in keeping with what we do in the future.
May I ask a question? So it brings to mind, so when you say the students who had completed Algebra 1, that could have been 7th graders, 8th graders, 9th, okay.
Yes.
So there's a whole series of students who took it
Yes.
and at some point passed, well after the fact that they had taken the course, they were taking the test.
That's
Okay.
accurate, yes.
Right, 'cause you could have had,
Participation is a
Right.
graduation requirement.
right, 'cause you could have had an 8th grader that took it that was in 8th grade in March of 2020 when we closed.
Right,
So, but they didn't take the test until September or October of this year.
right.
Because they have to have a
Right.
participation score for the test to meet the graduation requirement.
They're 2 years out from
Right.
Right.
the algebra class.
Yeah, that's,
Affirmative, yes.
So if you remember way back when we had assessments, we had 5 performance levels. If you remember, we 4 and 5 were what we were looking for to be that CCR and highly, students who met expectations. And so MSDE, because it's an abbreviated version and because we didn't do scale scores, they did petition to have, rather than the 5 grade bands, to have 3 for this assessment in the fall. Again, only this fall. And so the 3 that they had were approached expectations, met expectations, or exceeded expectations. So those were the 3. Now, I will tell you, they're changing again in the spring, so there will be 4 performance. So we went from 5 to 3 in the fall, and then we will be sharing with you 4 that are expected to be in the spring administration.
Can I ask a question? So on the levels, did they give you a raw score number for anyone, or they just got bombed into a level?
Yeah, I believe there was a raw score. There wasn't a scale score, but there was a raw score,
Raw
yes.
score.
Okay, so then if we're going from 3 to 4, how are you going to measure Mr. Math, Dr. Math, how are you going to measure the change to see whether or not you had improvement?
Well, it's a psychometrician that's going to have to answer that question. I'm going to defer to the state for guidance. I don't think they even know how they're going to do this.
Okay.
So I'm going to
Okay.
respectfully decline to answer that question. What was
Wise man.
interesting,
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So what I look at, for all of this,
mhm.
the success of St. Mary's County Public Schools is that we had a 95% participation rate of eligible students who sat for whatever test the state trotted out.
Right.
So we went from a pandemic where we were cast to the wind, where we didn't have anything, to being in person and not being in person, going through, to being in person but being masked, with all these things. And with given all of that, the mechanics behind providing the test and the wireless and the laptops and all of that, we did all of that and we had a 95% participation rate. And other counties may not have met that mark, but we did. Because I think right now it's as important to recognize the procedural parts of being able to administer an assessment, because I wouldn't put the greatest confidence and or my own personal time into evaluating trend data based on this assessment. It's a data set, it has some value, but as far as if I was trying to then apply it to the overall academic trajectory and the trend data and the comparative trend data that we often use, this is a really challenging data set.
and just to to pigeonhole that, I do agree with you, Scott. I mean, all the work that the schools did, the testing coordinators did, the students did,
Absolutely.
the principals did, and our Tammy Burr, who's the supervisor of assessment, to get to this point that we had over 95% participation, it should be acknowledged and recognized. So
Yep.
that's a good, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you went into the high schools and just saw the lists on
Oh, my
wall
goodness.
after
Yes.
wall after wall
Yes.
after wall
Yes.
of who
Well,
needed
to-
to be where and when you had to be there and
To
make
test-
sure that they were there.
To test sixth
was-
graders on fifth grade tests, we're not really built for that. They're in different buildings,
Right.
you know?
Exactly, exactly. The only other thing I wanted to add was I know that the Maryland State they petitioned for 2 levels. I think that's what we were under the we were operating with the idea that we would have 2 levels. The federal government said no, they denied that, so we had to go to 3 levels. So as you say, it's all, we're going to start all again here very soon in the spring, so.
Okay.
We do want to make sure that we share very clearly the intended use of this data because it was an abbreviated test that wasn't scale scored. After students had been out for a great many months of doing virtual learning. So this is just one measure we are looking at instructionally to do some reteaching, to look at see where gaps, to see how kids are now performing in the classroom and what this said, and to make some instructional decisions for small groups of kids, whole group, and then individual students. We are not using this data to place students or to make huge decisions on students. That is, it's just one true measure we're looking at. We have attended many of the state briefings where they've shared it really is probably the most helpful to look at the standards report to see which standards are the most deficit and which ones that students are succeeding on so that we spend more of our time when reteaching, of course, those deficit standards. We do have some standards that we have been very successful on, which is nice to see. So I just wanted to make very clear of how we are using this data instructionally within our school system.
So here's the layout. We always, again, we use data in St. Mary's County 2 ways. We never use data punitively. We always use data and look at data in context, and this is our context. Our context is the state. We have the ELA on my left and the math on the right, and we have meeting or exceeding. So that means that the students that participated, let's say for ELA, we had the ELA 3. Think about that's the 4th graders that participated in the exam in the fall. So we have 24% of our 3rd grade, and I should say 4th grade students that met or exceeded the 3rd grade ELA expectations, and that's commensurate with the state. There's no difference in that. You could see we have our data juxtaposed against the state data, and the delta or the difference is now in the next column to its right. So we have math up there, and we have ELA, and it's there for your edification, and I'm here to take any questions about this, as is Lisa, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I know you guys said this data isn't really being used for anything major as in placement of students, but do you see that these scores are actually reflected in the classroom that, these students who, like only 7% of students pass the Algebra 1 exam, so students who are moving on to geometry and Algebra 2, do you feel that they are prepared to take those courses
So-
as this low number of pass rate?
So I'll answer that in 2 ways, okay? I think this is, we have not even had an opportunity to pilot any of these items. As you know, we moved from the park to the MCAP. In March 2020, we were supposed to pilot all these things and get a lot more data. So this is really its first run and trial run at the data. There's multiple explanations for all that, all those data points. And I think one of the things as a student, I think sometimes you're motivated if you have to take a test in pass versus taking a test in just participating. I think there's some motivation. I think that's the first, when we did the MSA and the HSA back in the day, if students didn't have to pass, they really weren't necessarily vested or motivated. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying that, as Lisa said, we want to take what we can and glean from the data as much as we can, curricular items, but again, when we drill down to the individual student, it's going to be really hard for us to ascertain whether or not that's their best performance or not. But by and large, we again, the context is most important with the state. We want to be at least at or where the state is in every row and column up there on the dais. So.
Thank you. That actually answered another question because Dr. Smith earlier said participation grade, and Just needed verification that I actually meant sitting in the test and just taking it.
Yep.
All right, thank
Putting
you.
your name on it, filling in some dots.
All
there you
right.
go.
So this test has to be taken with a grain of salt, yeah? Or the results of it. Yeah.
I think we want to believe that students participated and did the best that they could. And again, traditionally, the younger students really put their all into everything, and the older students are a little bit more wise and cunning and smart and practical. So I think by and large, we want to take the big takeaways, which are curricular, that Lisa and her team they're unpacking and making some global decisions. And we are not, I wouldn't say taking with a grain of salt, but I do think we are adjudicating the results in a very in a manner that's fitting. It's just we're not going to overdo the results, but at the same time we're gonna take them and make some big decisions that are reflective of the data in a very with integrity.
And
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Judy makes an interesting point, as you were talking about the tests, the variety of tests, statewide assessments that have been over the last 20 years. And I believe this test is very similar to those in that they put the test out before they ever tell you what they're looking for. So I think it'd be really interesting to sort of compare these initial scores to the initial scores of those prior tests, not really to say there's any equivalency, but rather are the trends somewhat similar? And at least as I recall, the percentages of students who successfully completed those tests and did well on them really kind of mirrored these numbers as well. And the difference between our scores and those of the state also, as I recall, sort of ran along these same lines. And so if my recollection is relatively accurate, then these scores are not that surprising, even given the pandemic. So I guess I have to go back through some old board docs to look at some of the stuff, because these just look so similar.
I would concur. I think your takeaway makes sense. For me, as a psychometrician, I would look at this and I would wonder why there was so much discrepancy between an Algebra 1 performance and an ELA 6 performance. What psychometrically speaking, I mean, there just seems to be a little one-offs with the data, but I'll leave that, just hang out there and not comment anymore about it. So. This is our MISA, this is our science, and you can see grade 5 again, as our sitting 6th graders participating in grade 5 content. We had grade 8, and then we had the high school. Again, agnostic of grade level, it was really those that participated in biology or needed a test for graduation. And you can see the difference in the delta between our performance in the state that met or exceeded the content expectations on science tests.
And this information is going to our families. So that's why we want to definitely have this communication to both you, the board, as well as our community. Individual student reports, we lovingly call them ISRs, are scheduled to be delivered to schools. Today, we wanted to make sure we had the board meeting and then delivered them to schools, and then the schools will process the reports and they will send them home with students. So parents, just be aware that they are coming home, and please be aware of all the discussion we've had, the intended use of those to kind of look. They are a great tool to have discussions with teachers about those standards that maybe we need to do some review and recursive teaching on.
And that should be 2022, not 2021.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, it should be.
Yeah, so. As Lisa said, this is the basic, screenshot or snip of what an ISR would look like. That should be coming home. We have within 30 days of receipt. By law, we have to send those back out to students. So at the conclusion of today, schools will have the ability to send this out to students, and then the MCAP that's a score interpretation to help parents sort of process all the information that's embedded in that ISR.
entertain any questions or comments.
No questions.
Jim?
No questions, thank you.
Nothing further.
I just have one question. So if I'm a parent and I get the report that comes home, right, and I have concerns, my first call is my high school principal, my counselor. Where am I going?
I would say if you have concerns about, per se, in English,
Mm-hmm.
an assessment, I would start with the teacher.
Okay.
Because what you're going to want to ask is this how my student is performing? Like, what is the same or different of how my student's performance is in your class so far this year?
Okay.
I think that's the first place. And then, of course, to the principal, counselor, principal, and then ultimately to Alex or myself.
Okay.
So these will go home at the same time report cards are going home.
Right, so you could look at
So,
both documents
that
at
would
the
be
same
great.
time.
Yeah.
So if your child got a 1 on their 7th grade ELA, and then they got their 8th grade report card, and it says that they earned an A in the second marking period, you can certainly go into Schoology and see every single assignment that they've had and how they performed on it, and the comments back by the teacher. And I think that needs to be what drives really conversation, at home. I think eventually, when we get the data system all worked out and we have great faith and confidence in the assessment, and we've given the assessment for 3 years without changing anything, without scale scoring it and 3 years worth of data, that's when I think it should be exceptionally important that we're all clued in. But I mean, it's going to take that long to really get everything up and running. And we as a state of Maryland, we do this, I've been doing this 31 years, and we just keep on switching horses in the middle of the stream. And this was a heck of a horse swap in the middle of a very big stream, so.
Well, I think it's just disheartening just because these are the data points that everyone's going to use, right? Meaning the state, the
Absolutely.
legislature, everyone.
I mean, well,
And
yes.
no one digs down and looks at the test itself, right? And just even seeing, the tests that even the county assessments that come in elementary school, sometimes they are structured far differently than what the teaching is. So it's just not saying that it's an accurate reflection, but it's a challenge, I think, for every student, as it should be. But then, this is the result, and then this is what the headline is.
Yeah.
So
But I do think that they are going to look at these results, and they are going to do some heavy lifting with revising as much as they possibly can these tests to make it more commensurate with the standards that we've been given.
Creating the very best tool. I mean, there's a heck of an investment here, not only straightforward of all the monetary investment, but the human capital to go through and deliver all of these assessments, and the instructional time that was taken away from children, and all that, all of that. That's a very important consideration for all of this, and obviously, as we transition at the high school level to have these be basically end-of-course assessments that are built into the final grade, that's going to cause a heck of a seismic shift as well. So, there's a lot of things to look forward to. Judy, you're going to have to come back in 2 or 3 years and see how we're doing. See just how gray all my hair is, whether it's falling out, whatever.
I have a sibling this system. I'll come back.
Oh, perfect. Come back and visit. Sit in the back and laugh and laugh.
Yeah, he's a sophomore, so that's actually
Oh
good
my gosh,
timing.
that'll be perfect.
Good timing, yeah.
That'll be perfect timing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. All right, Lisa, you can just continue on.
Yes.
Bachner gets to stay up there, and we get to
Thank
swap
you.
out
Ms. Gill?
Jaffers for Miss Gill.
And it's funny that Dr. Jaffers left, and we have the longer slideshow with Ms. Gill and myself. That usually does not happen, but it's happening here. Ms. Gill and I are here tonight to share with you, as we do most years, the application process for academies and any changes and revisions to those academies that we are making for the year coming up. Just for for the recording and record, we want to go ahead. There's a lot of acronyms here, so before we start, we definitely want to define what all of these acronyms are, just for the good of everyone who's listening. AOF is the Academy of Finance. AVPA is the Academy of Visual and Performing Arts. GIS is the Academy of Global and International Studies, and STEM is the Academy of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. And we just wanted to make sure we had that we use a lot of acronyms sometimes, and we have to be mindful of our public to make sure we define those.
Okay, so the Academy timeline this year will be very similar to the Academy timeline last year. The applications will open on Wednesday, April 6th. We will also have our virtual open house last year that we had, sorry, new mask, we had for the first time last year. It's going to follow suit as last year. It'll be just a Q&A session. Parents and families and potential students will have attended the Rising Freshman Nights already, and then they can come with any follow-up questions. We'll have students from each Academy program along with a teacher or two to answer those questions virtually. Wednesday, May 4th, the applications will close. Friday, May 27th will be the deadline for notification. We will email the acceptance letters or sort of the wait list, if you will, letters on no later than that date. We do typically get them out before then. Monday, May 6th will be, Monday, June 6th will be the date that families have to accept, and then we would move on to the wait list. And then June 7th through 10th, we would place the waitlist students so that we can finally get the final list of Academy students to schools by August. We'll get a preliminary list to them in June so they can begin scheduling. So the process. Last year, because we didn't have school-based assessments, we had just one general assessment. There were many perks to that. All the students are taking the same test in the same sort of situation. But it also isn't sort of an organic testing situation within the classroom, so sometimes that's not the most beneficial way. Therefore, we decided to go back, since we were going to have school-based assessments this year, we'd go back to that process. We are going to go back to the matrices that we've used in the past. Because there is no social studies assessment for 8th graders this year, all 9th grade GIS assessment applicants will have to sit for a social studies assessment. So that will be independent, and we will take care of inviting applicants to do so. And then applicants whose matrix scores meet or exceed the threshold that is set by the content supervisors, they will be placed in a lottery for available spaces. That's similar to last year. Okay. Similar to what we've done in the past, because we are a highly mobile county, we do save 2 spaces back for any students moving into the county over the summer. And any student who takes the assessments and meets or exceeds the score will be put in the lottery with any students remaining in that, and the final spaces will be filled in August. Okay, so applicants for GIS and STEM will be evaluated on a matrix, which is similar to what we've done in the past. Non-SMCPS applicants, as soon as we receive their application, we begin inviting them to come and sit for the assessments. And sometimes they are able to do that during their spring break, or they come after school if they're local. If they're not local, but they are moving into the area, we work with them. Sometimes I work with the base liaison to set up appointments for them. And then AVPA applicants will be evaluated on an interview and an audition, as they have in the past. Okay, so the rationale for the continued use of the lottery system. Ms. Bachner and I looked at the data for students who, for the students who participated in the lottery versus students who didn't, versus students who maybe cycled up with STEM or historically. And we're seeing that students who were part of the lottery system, they are, their scores, their performance in the academies are equal. They're performing at the same status, the same rate, if you will, for lack of a better term, as the previous cohorts of academy students. So what we're finding with the lottery is we're able to cast a wider net and pull in more students through just saying everybody above this threshold can qualify. So the initial, as I said before, the initial lottery will take place in May.
Okay. This is my slide. right?
It is, yes.
We have made the decision that the continuation of STEM consideration, if you remember, we have at this time, we have current STEM 5 students and 8 students, and they will be given priority over applicants for 6th and 9th grade STEM. Of course, they have to apply, and some of them historically, especially from 8th to 9th grade, choose other avenues sometimes, either to go back to their home high school or choose a different academy, and that's absolutely fine. But Ms. Gill does a lot of communication with families, and she visits every single 5th grade classroom, does a parent night, I believe, for 5th grade STEM students, as well as visits all 8th graders in the academies, just to make sure they're very clear that they need to apply if they'd like to be considered to move on. And they have to be in good standing with the academy. Ms. Gill, as well as the teachers at the academies, have what they call art teams, which are academy review teams for any student who may be struggling in an academy. And so those are noted and, trying to counsel with parents and students if the academy really isn't the best avenue for them through the year before they can make a decision about going through the application process. AOF, we are asking to make some changes to AOF. So we had to go back a bit because when AOF was introduced, the initial iteration, I was not in this position, but I know some board members, Ms. Allen, Ms. Washington, were part of the board at that time. And if you remember, it wasn't AOF, it was the National Academy of Finance, NAOF, and we'll get to that in a minute. Right there, National Academy of Finance. And if you go back to the resource, even today, it will share with you the National Academy of Finance is still an organization that supports schools, and it's designed for a general education student who has interest in pursuing business-related coursework and experiences. It was not, and it is not a program designed to encapsulate a lot of honors, AP, or college-level coursework. Between 2018 and 22, and if you remember, Ms. Mandus was Ms. Gill's counterpart before Ms. Gill came on board. We parted ways with NAOF because our intent was to make Academy of Finance a very rigorous program in correlation with the other academies. And we did a lot to foster that. We put in some AP research and seminar classes, not only to the Academy of Finance, but to other academies. We also instituted or added pre-AP English, and again, not just to AOF, but all the other academies had a pre-AP English class. And those, of course, have been presented to the board and approved by you. Now we're looking at the next couple years, and it was time for us to reevaluate the Academy of Finance. Some things were working beautifully, but some things were not. And we have to keep in mind what's coming down the road, which is the Kerwin blueprint. And the blueprint says as early as next year, although I believe the State Board of Education made some changes that yesterday, was saying that we have to have we have to have varied pathways for different students. Students who meet CCR, we need to have pathways for them, more pathways. And students who do not meet CCR, we need to have pathways. And we had a lot of discussion with the current AOF staff at Chopticon High School, and Ms. Gill and myself, and Mr. Boyle, who's head of CTE. We talked about currently there are so many courses within our current program of studies that are available at every single one of our high schools that students absolutely could have a pathway of distinction for Academy of Finance at any of our 3 high schools. Yes, we're going to have to do some work, and yes, we're going to have to make sure we support schools, figuring out what courses they can offer in what years, but we absolutely could do that so that we could actually support 2 pathways. Really, it's a lot of choice and voice for students within this Academy of Distinction, or this distinction for Academy of Finance. They can absolutely go more of a, I'm going to go through some business courses because my intent is to either go to trade school or I want to go to the world of business work right out of school. And then there's a lot of other choices, which Ms. Gill will get into a little bit later, that still gives those AP dual enrollment internship possibilities too, if someone wants to still pursue, I want to come out with some real business experience and go into a 2 or 4 year business avenue or pathway at a university or college. So beginning with the 2026 cohort, students may apply, this is next year's entering freshmen, may apply to take their courses at their home high school to complete the Academy of Finance pathway distinction. So we are actually expanding the Academy of Finance to 3 high schools instead of just at Chopticon. Students do not need to apply for the program within the timeline that Ms. Gill has shared with you previously tonight. They can register it with their guidance counselor when it meets their needs. So if a student has already taken perhaps 2 business classes and is sitting with their counselor as a sophomore, the counselor can point out and say, you know what, are you interested in this? Because you already have 2 classes that would, that you're on the right direction to get this distinction. So it's kind of a rolling open application. And never fear, those students who are currently enrolled in the Academy of Finance, in other words, those students right now that are freshmen through juniors, they will continue at Chopticon High School as Academy of Freshmen students until their program is complete and their senior year.
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So students who are currently being bused or are currently already at Chopticon because it's their home school and they're attending the Academy of Finance, for the students who may wish to take this program of distinction at their home school, would they have the option to, or would they have to be continued being bused to Chopticon?
Students currently in the program?
Yeah, currently.
Would continue in the program.
Okay, so they'll have an option to do it at their home school, or they have to do it at Chopticon?
No, only the incoming freshmen
Okay.
would be the change.
Okay.
I think to go beyond that would muddy the water for schools when they're really starting to launch with the incoming freshmen. So students currently in the Academy of Finance at Chopticon High School, 9th through 11th, would stay there.
All right, thank you.
And I also keep in mind, there's not that many students from other schools that travel to Chopticon to take the Academy of Finance pathway.
Right, currently we have, sorry, I pulled the numbers on that
it.
today.
One of my neighbors travels to Chopticon.
You knew this was going to be a question.
So currently enrolled in the Academy of Finance at Chopticon High School are 80 students in total. 43, their home school is Chopticon. 12 are from Great Mills and 25 are from LEONARDTOWN High School.
Across all the years.
So,
And so we'll continue to offer transportation for them to Chopticon,
yes, because
Until
we
they
do
finish.
still have it.
AVPA.
AVPA, they are on buses with AVPA, and
Right.
it's my understanding that there are some ROTC students on some of those buses as well.
Right.
Goes up for,
Yeah,
yep.
and as well as other Chopticon High School students, the buses do stop at other stops.
I have a question about the wording on this slide. The very first bullet says students may apply and take courses, and then the second bullet says students will not need to apply. Can you clarify the distinction between what they may apply to?
So the application, they're going to have to alert their counselor, and so they would apply. They, that's the first instance. I do see your confusion, and I apologize for that.
I think register is probably the better
Register
word.
is the better word. They do not have to go through the academy application process.
Mhm.
Yes.
And there's no lottery.
There is no lottery, and that's one of the other beautiful things about moving it to their home schools is we can accommodate as many students as are interested. And some who may not even know that they're interested until they take that first business course, and then they realize, hey, I'm really interested in this. This is a pathway that I would like to explore further.
And conversely, we have lots of students who we want to explore different things. That's what high school is for. And so if I even register to be in the Academy of Finance and get through some electives and say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'd rather do something perhaps at the tech center and go a different pathway. You're fine. You're still at your school. I mean, you know, you haven't made a lot of different changes where it's hard for you to kind of switch gears a little bit more.
All right, just to clarify on that. So the other academies, like STEM, GIS, AVPA, those students rarely can ever take a tech center program. If anything, they can take a tech center elective because they're, you know, the classes they have to take to graduate are so confining. They really can't. They don't have the time in their schedule to take tech center programs. But are you saying with this AOF distinction, you might have the room to take a tech center program as well?
That's exactly
what we're
yeah.
saying. Yes.
Another bonus to moving things back to the classroom.
And
Of
you're
course,
a great segue to the next
Yeah.
slide.
I was going to say, of course, let's talk about the required coursework. So the working with Mr. Boyle, the supervisor of CTE, we looked at what the 4 required courses were for this pathway. So every student must take Principles of Finance, Economics of Business, Principles of Accounting, and Managerial Accounting. And then for the fourth one, they have a choice. They can take Financial Planning, Financial Services, or complete an internship, which would be regulated. Supplementing that, they would take 2 elective courses. And this is where things can really get interesting and fun for some of the teachers. I know in speaking with Miss Baden at Chaptacon High School, she was fairly excited about some of the electives that she could offer. Right now, the electives that we have in the program of studies that could work, AP Economics, Principles of Business Administration, Business Administration 1, Microsoft, or any alternative. Additionally, these could be CSM courses or dual enrollment courses. So students could decide to take an AP route or a college route. This is where they could supplement for that maybe more rigorous academic experience within the business world, or students could decide not to take that route. Currently in the Academy of Finance, we have some students who are looking to take business courses at CSM and will get their AA as they're graduating. So really opening that up to other students as well. Creating the 2 different pathways within the academy we feel would be more beneficial to the students, to what students are saying they're interested in, to what their future plans are. And then moving the academy to students' home schools will enable more students to reach for this, to attempt this with, as Ms. Bachner said, very little risk, because I can come and go. Like, I'm not signing up for 4 years. Sometimes students, it's a huge leap to take to be in an academy. And as Judy pointed out, just once you're in, it's like, wait, I can't go to the tech center, or I can't do, I can't take these other electives that I might be interested in. This will open that up a bit. There are so many, and Ms. Bachner and I were talking about this today, we cannot account for all of the subtleties as to why people do or do not apply to academy programs. I look through student schedules at random and find them taking a myriad of CTE courses or a myriad of fine arts courses, and they are not in the academies. And I would love to interview these students and find out why not, why aren't you? And I'm sure I will get different responses. Some it couldn't be interest, some there's an immense loyalty to the home high school in this county. Immense, like the idea of leaving Great Mills and going to Chaptacon is not going to happen because my family went to Great Mills, or green and gold are my colors, or I love Dr. Heibel.
All very valid.
So I hope that by opening AOF up to the 3 high schools, we will be able to accommodate more of student interest, accommodate what families are able to do, because we are a rather long county, so it is a long bus ride for over-scheduled teenagers. And really what the community, the business community and the base wants. They, in speaking to the business partners and people on base, there's a real interest in home growing our talent.
These are the exact courses that they want our kids to go through and to see on transcripts. It is to see Principles of Accounting, Managerial Accounting. According to Tammy, that's something that everybody should take. It's really important. So there's always people like, I want to be a businessman. I'm going to be in marketing. I'm going to be whatever. You better understand the basics of the Principles of Accounting, because that's business.
I do have a question. So the other academies like STEM, GIS, ABPA, these classes you take are built in to meet your graduation requirements. Are these courses, like I see the required coursework, would Principles of Finance meet any math requirements or anything like that?
The Principles of Finance does not. It meets your elective. It also, remember, this would be a pathway, so it meets your pathway requirement.
Okay.
So it does that. Not to say that in the future it couldn't be one of those courses. We have some courses that meet both, like a math requirement and a CT. It doesn't mean that it can't happen, but right now it's not.
All right, thank you.
The Advanced Microsoft Office Specialist Training, is that a 1 and 2, or is that, did that just get duplicated on the slide?
Oh dear, it should be a 1 and 2.
It should be 1 and 2. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. Okay, so how does the coursework of the past 4 required and 2 elective on this differ from what the students are doing now. Because to your point as to why some people are not in the Academy of Finance, I can tell you from my daughter's experience, she couldn't make her schedule work, right? She couldn't take the sciences that she needed with a
Yes.
lab and meet what the requirements were of the Finance Academy. It was impossible.
So, and that's exactly correct. As students get older, freshman and sophomore years, usually not an issue. But once we get to junior year, that's when double period science classes start with your AP sciences. Or the tech center is a huge draw, or I discover a love of music. So students do have to make those really tough decisions. To answer your question, these are at the core, the courses of AOF. Aside from the electives, these are the core courses that Mr. Boyle identified as needing of the pathway, and they are the ones that the AOF is built upon. What is no longer required would be, currently they are required to take AP Government, AP Seminar, the 2 pre-AP English courses. So obviously they have to take government, they have to take English courses. We'd love for them to take AP Seminar, but those courses are no longer required, and it's just a core focus on the business related courses.
When you build a pathway, you offer, those are all singletons. So you offer that course at that exact time, and everything else has to bend to that time.
Right.
Assuming this is running well in a comprehensive high school, they may have multiple opportunities to run principles of finance. It might run at different periods throughout the day. Any English class, like English 9 runs every single period of the day. English 10, and that's there's so much more freedom in this. And I'm not sure the pathway isn't going to be that's not the way it has to go. It doesn't have to be principles of finance, economics of business, principles of accounting, financial planning, financial services, or internship, right?
You are correct.
It's my understanding. So these can be mixed and matched and run the same year and things like that.
Right. Aside from where the internship will
Right,
probably
the
be.
internship has to
yeah,
be,
you
right.
wouldn't
Yeah.
start there.
The other thing is, for the first time for an academy to kind of go with your concern, which is a concern of many that we've heard, is that caveat at the very bottom. Any of the above courses could be substituted for a CSM course or any other course of equal content and status. Gives the ability for students to come to us and say, hey, I saw this really cool class at CSM. Would you consider it? We've really never done that before, where a student's coming to us with something interesting and saying, hey, I think this would, and high school students, if they're adamant about something, they're going to come with their data, and they're going to be able to show how it does meet those requirements. And it gives us the ability, pretty much for the first time, for a distinction on a graduation pathway to say, you know what, you're right, you can take that, and it's going to count. And that's exciting. That really has potential, I think, for a lot of what we do in the future. And a lot of things we did last year virtually, opened some possibilities for even more of that, I think.
I have a few more questions.
Okay.
So, as an accounting student, I don't know if that was what was conveyed, but I am a GIS student. But in STEM, GIS, APPA, your schedule is basically you have these required classes for each year, and what your empty spaces you have to fill up on your own based on graduation requirements or your elective choice, etc. But from what I heard from Dr. Smith, you're essentially building your schedule as you go, and you can complete this in any amount of years. Like, you can take the whole 4 years of high school to complete this pathway, or
Yes.
2 or 3.
Yes.
But then I'm assuming that would hold a lot of responsibility in the guidance counselor to make sure these students are on path to finish.
And that's why they have to, any student interested needs to communicate it to their guidance counselor, that this is something I'm interested in. Perhaps we don't catch them in 8th grade rising to 9th grade, then we catch them rising to 10th grade, where they take their first business course and they say, I really like this. So then in 11th grade, if I can build my schedule where I can take 2 business courses and, then do an internship, and then I take my elective senior year.
All right. Thank you.
I have a question on the mix of your applicants in terms of gender. Are you seeing more ladies interested in getting into this program? I know that I talked with some folks on the base, and they were trying to recruit female engineers, and they're having a hard time, getting applicants. So I was just curious if if you're seeing a trend where, more women are coming in, or young ladies are coming into the program as opposed to just males.
So
Especially in
unfortunately-
STEM,
So you're asking across the board?
across the board.
It's been a while since I've looked at the data through that lens, through looking at gender. But the last time I looked at STEM, it was a 50-50. Like, it was pretty darn close to 50-50. AVPA tends to have more females.
Right.
AOF, not quite 50-50, but close. GIS is a little more heavily laden with females as well.
Yeah, from personal observation, it is more female. I think I have like 5 males in my class now.
So, I think it's most extreme in GIS. I'm not sure if that's the interest in the topic or just the brain development. I'm sure we could look at that
Sure.
a few different ways.
Any other questions on ALF? Because I don't want to.
I want to go back to high school, and I want to take the music class where we're talking about like electronic music and composition, and realizing that later on I'm going to become the superintendent, I would be taking every single one of these courses because those are exceptionally important towards the world of business.
Can I just want to make a comment on the principles of finance.
Opposed to poetry.
I've read I know poetry.
I got it.
The course description, and then my daughter went through that. It's really more of a personal finance class from what I understand, rather than like a college level finance class. Is that that was before. So I don't know if this is going to change, because what I think of being a finance major and see principles of finance versus what the coursework was, I think are two different things.
Okay, we can absolutely
So
go back
just
and make sure.
so that we're not misleading anyone or a potential employer as to what that is.
I made a note to check that.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, the other change we're bringing you tonight is we are not accepting applications for STEM 4 or STEM 5. If you remember last year, we came to you and we were very, very excited about proposing to do a STEM 4 all, and we did that because we didn't have data at the time for any students. They had been out since 2nd grade, and we didn't want to do that. And so we did this, and we said we would come back to you with a report of how that program is going and make a decision about STEM 5 for this year. So we're going to show you that data. I will say, in my time in this position for 5 years now, it's amazing. This truly has been one of the most magnificent programs that I've ever seen implemented in our school system. I'm very, very proud of it. It's one of those times where you make a decision and you don't expect it to go as well as it did. Like I had, me, I'm a Pollyanna, and I expected it to be a wonderful program. I did not expect the results of what I have seen over and over and over because of this decision. And Ms. Gill, Mr. Hayes, and I will say the STEM teachers that were at Lexington Park, all 4 of them, 2 which are still there, were instrumental in making this happen. They're a phenomenal group of teachers that gave us a base program with which to do this. So I do not want to at all discount the contributions they've made to this, even though it looks different than what they're passionate and what they've done for years. So I just want to commend Lexington Park Elementary School as the site and the teachers that have really kind of brought this to fruition. The rationale is we have been able, STEM 4 All is what we call it this year, but we will start calling it STEM 4 FOR All, because we're going to be able to service more than just a 4th grade class, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We're going to expand it. We've been able to offer STEM integrated class activities to all 4th grade students countywide as we expected to. It has proved to service every single 4th grader. So far, at least twice. Now we're working on the 3rd quarter, so they're getting their 3rd dose. And additionally, we have all 4th grade teachers are now receiving on-the-spot modeled professional development for STEM lessons by doing this model. So that's the other kind of caveat and bonus of this. In the past, if you remember, great program, but we were only able to service 48 students in the STEM cohort, and 2 teachers benefited from the professional development that we provided for STEM.
Okay, so just a quick glance at the data. As Ms. Bachner said, in the past, looking at the numbers for the last accepted cohort of STEM 4, which was the 2021 cohort, 53 students applied, 46 students were accepted, and when we took the top accepted student and above, and all the way down to the last accepted student, the number of students in that score range was 535. So when we ran those numbers and really looked at the power, we are missing about 500 students who had the potential to succeed in the STEM program. Looking at STEM for All, we are able to service 1,160 students this year. That's every fourth grader in the county. And as Ms. Faulkner said, all of the teachers, that's 56 teachers. And really the PD is such an important piece. Elementary teachers are not trained in STEM integrated lessons. The science, yes, somewhat. The engineering, the technology, they shy away from. So having the 2 STEM for All teachers in the classroom, really working with them to model and deliver these lessons and talk them through that academic discourse, to have the students really thinking through and building and creating together is a powerful thing to see. So I would just love to invite you all to visit. I can share the schedule with you. Mr. Hayes and I, the science supervisor, we are the substitute STEM for All teachers, so we kind of get excited when we need to go, like, oh, you need a sub? Let's go. So Mr. Hayes and I have been fortunate enough to sub during the second quarter a few times, and the students are just so responsive and so thrilled. And at one point there was a misunderstanding that we actually worked for NASA, but we kept that dream alive and just told them that NASA sends us out to build the next group of NASA scientists. And the students just love that, and so many of them want to be scientists and engineers. So really casting this wide net is beneficial to home growing these engineers for our community.
This is a wonderful program that you are now able to admit more students into the programs and make sure that the teachers had the professional development to teach STEM for all. So this is great news.
Did you have a comment?
No,
Okay. I would just like to say, SMCPS is just as good as NASA.
Yes.
But,
Oh my goodness.
yes, but in the world of
I'm going
education,
to tweet that out.
you have to quote me on that one.
Yeah.
But in the world of education, there has been a push to view the achievement gap as an opportunity gap. And I think that's so true, just because when you give more resources and opportunities and just more development to these students, to an exclusive group, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course, these students are gonna do better or do well because they have these resources. But expanding the STEM for all, for essentially all students in fourth grade, there's no longer an opportunity gap because everything is being provided for everyone.
Exactly. And to add to it, I think to some elementary students, STEM was this mystique. They didn't know what it was. They weren't sure, and now they are living and breathing it in a more pointed way. So we wanted to share a few pictures. Speaking of tweeting out, these are pictures that have been tweeted out by the schools I believe they are all from the first marking period, the lunar lander exhibit. Experience. And I believe you were all able to sort of look through the books. Every student receives one of these bound books. It says name of engineer at the bottom. They are greeted as good morning engineers and spoken to as engineers. They are the ones making these decisions and really understanding that their input matters. And the next slide is from students, and really some powerful comments. So I was trying just to limit it, but then there were so many I didn't want to. So to me, the powerful statements were, it let me think freely, understanding what's out there, that engineers do, within parameters, they are all given parameters for the experience, and they can't break them, even though sometimes they do, but it's okay. We learn from this. And then the other really powerful one was the last one. It feels like I matter. And I feel like the student wasn't saying she doesn't matter, and it was a female student, not feeling she doesn't matter in her classroom on a daily basis, but to have these guests come in and present this very important lesson to them was just a very powerful thing for her. And then finally, some data, some feedback collected from teachers. I'll just give you a second to look at that. So aside from the word love popping out 3 times, which I didn't notice until I was sitting just here, really talking about the way the students are working together, seeing students in a different light, seeing students excel where before perhaps they haven't. There's some leadership components, there's collaboration. As I mentioned before, there's an academic discourse where the students are really discussing. So it is a powerful thing, and Ms. Bacher and I were talking about just how we just wholeheartedly believe this is the way to go for our students. Because as I mentioned with AOF, there are 1,000 reasons why students weren't applying, that of that 500 students we were missing, why they weren't applying for the elementary STEM cohorts. This lets them have those experiences. The 2 STEM for All teachers were STEM teachers at Lexington Park. They are bringing the lessons from the STEM classroom, from their STEM program, to all of the students, and then the teachers we're working with the teachers to eventually grow and expand upon them. So.
And I think the third bullet really
Yep.
goes to the professional
That's the
development,
stuff.
is what the whole point is. I feel like a great teacher modeled a great lesson and gave me cause to reflect on my own practices. Because that's what we want them to do, is to take any science, math lesson they're doing, and is there one little thing that I saw that I can incorporate and make this more STEM-like? And that's a good thing. That's the point. So. And so our vision for next year is, with the 2 STEM for All teachers we have, we want to continue to do the 4 lessons, 1 for each marking period of 4th grade. Our intent is that for any new 4th grade teacher next year, or anybody moving to 4th grade, we will continue the modeling with those STEM for All teachers, just like we did that this year. But for those 4th grade teachers who we've already modeled for this year, the intent is that we would co-teach with those teachers next year and then do the gradual release, so that they're okay by the end of next year to kind of go on their own then and deliver those lessons. And so we're able, with that model, to next year expand and do 5th grade and 3rd grade, and to do 2 lessons with each of those grade levels. And so we'll be doing 1 STEM lesson per semester with 3rd grade, and 1 for 5th, and then again. 5th grade also has MISA, so they're strapped for time, so that's why we didn't decide to do all 4 with 5th grade. We thought it would be good to do 3rd grade, give them some experiences, still have our 4 in 4th grade, and then the 2 in 5th grade. And then hopefully we can continue to expand in the elementary school to give more grade levels some STEM experiences.
I think it will also be really interesting to see how our students going forward do on MISA, to see if we can demonstrate in any way improvement in their scores on MISA, and do those in any way correlate to this change in what they're being introduced to.
And we're very interested in that, to see if that occurs.
I have a question on enrollment in STEM. As I recall, it doubled with 4 All. You've doubled the enrollment, correct? More than doubled.
With what?
Yes.
STEM for All.
Well, yeah,
STEM for all.
they're reaching double the amount of
It's recent,
students.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, my question,
Yeah, we were going from 48, so last 48 students to 1,100.
1,000.
Every
We're
single
missing-
4th grade
right,
student.
You're missing 500.
So from 2
yes.
classes of 4th grade to
every
every single
4th
4th grade class in the county.
We went from 48 to
okay,
1,160
I thought it was
students.
400, I'm sorry.
Yes.
My question is if you had a real gifted student in the STEM for All, would he be held back at all because of the different type of curriculum?
STEM
You
for all.
understand my question?
No, STEM for all is for all students.
I understand that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that it would seem to me it's for all students. Maybe the goalpost is down a little bit. Would it affect anybody that's in the higher echelon?
There's
of
always
the program?
there's always differentiated instruction. And so the aim is for teachers to meet students where they are and take them to greater levels. It doesn't matter what level they're on, so.
Still
I'll-
gifted
Okay,
and
then
talented.
that answers my
They're still
question.
gifted and talented and extension opportunities. And
But like in the Lunar Lander, you had that booklet in front of you. I visited one of the classes that did Lunar Lander, and it was, of course, most fourth grade classrooms, you have a range of levels in most fourth grade classes, and this absolutely had that. And it was very interesting after the first 5 minutes. Ms. Carpenter, our teacher, she kind of explained everything. She identified immediately there was a small group of students who did not need any further explanation, and she let them go ahead, and she gathered some more kids in front of her, and she reiterated or had them summarize kind of what they were going to do, did another model demonstration. The other students didn't need that. They were already kind of on their own. And then she even kept 3 students back and handed them a calculator because they had accommodations on their IEPs that gave them a calculator accommodation. So those students, they were all doing the same activity, but they had varying levels of support. Absolutely, because she is a former STEM teacher, she knew very easily which students really shouldn't have any more direction, they had minimal instruction and let them go on their own to kind of figure things out themselves. So,
Okay.
yes, I'm not going to say it happens every time, but the lesson I saw it happened.
No, and that is a very powerful thing. Actually, if there's a perfume or something, I'm not sure if it's you.
Thank you.
well, you smelled it, so it's okay if you're coughing and you don't have that
I
symptom.
didn't think you could smell it from here.
It's lovely. But the concern was if this would be a detriment to the higher students.
That's my
It's the
question.
converse, is really the lower students are getting that opportunity for free thinking and for free expression that they don't normally get because perhaps they're more teacher directed. So the higher level students, the GT, if you will, students are able to take it and run through that differentiation. But all levels of students are also being afforded that sort of free reign to, hey, let's see how this goes.
It was also really interesting to watch the teacher watch that teacher.
Yes.
Because the teacher was a newer teacher. And I think she was like, oh, I didn't know that I could do this. You know, like, you know you can do it, but it's hard to manage when you're doing that for the first time. But if you see another teacher doing it, it makes it real and it makes it more accessible to you as a teacher. So it was very valuable for the kids, and I think for the teacher understanding that quickly just handing 3 kids a calculator, reiterating something to a group and letting a group go is differentiation. I think sometimes we think it's really a lot harder, and it can be. It can be. But I mean, it was modeled very like, I can do this. I can do this.
And I'd like to think that by offering it to so many more students in an exciting way and it being something special that pops into the classroom, that it is going to be enough to hook some kids and maybe encourage them to step out on their own and maybe seek out some other opportunities like that. So I think it's a thrilling way to be able to do this, and I expect that there will be great benefit from it.
I just have 2 comments. Number one, I like it much better than everyone trekking down to Lexington Park. It's very difficult, especially in the northern part of the county, to put a 9-year-old on a bus at 6:15 in the morning to get down to the start time at Lexington Park for the 4th grade STEM classes. And then secondly, I guess as we build excitement for the lessons going forward, have you given any thought to, because there's so many different things that you can outreach to, like the drones at the airport, to do, I guess, centralized assemblies for those 4th grade students, right? Where they can see what, like maybe this is what we did in a lesson and now this is a real world application, because
We would love to have you come to one of these lessons.
Well, right, I mean,
And-
if that- and that's,
and-
but I mean, like, continue to, like, let them have the lesson, but then let them, like, see.
See it in action.
In action as a
life.
result, and I don't know, I know the Patuxent Partnership always supported us in STEM, so maybe that's where we bridge with them to see what,
The
you
Patuxent
know.
Partnership has been pushing STEM for all
Right.
forever.
Right, I know.
And wanting to see that we were, especially inspiring the next generation of engineers, and particularly those non-traditional people that may not have considered this. And so what an inspiring thing it is to see a teacher come in and provide a great lesson. Like that, this is, it can't be said enough. This group, particularly Ms. Bachner and Ms. Gill, Mr. Hayes, and the STEM teachers, they really thoughtfully said, how do we make an opportunity for all kids? How do we build an inspirational model? And that's exactly what this is. It's worked so well.
And I haven't thought of that. I think that's a fantastic. What I have thought about too is in the future, I mean, I get these ideas, really making sure that maybe we think about some STEM clubs at the schools so that the kids who really get excited, it's not just 4 times a year or those experiences your teacher brings in, but, can I do some other things for those kids who are excited? So I think that has the potential there too, as well as maybe some summer experiences we offer. And we added a Elms camp last summer, and we have other things that happen this summer. Maybe this hopefully would inspire some kids to maybe attend some of those summer offerings, not summer school, but maybe some summer camps.
Summer
for
enrichments,
STEM.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
those are kind of some
right,
future things.
I mean, aside from the programs at the base, because I'm sure there's much more red tape, but, there's a lot of contractors that are outside that are, that have, those types of things. And I know down at the airport, with their drones and, their unmanned, aircraft, whatever, Jim, you can help me on that, but, I mean, it's,
UAVs.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting in what they can do, and I think showing kids the opportunity out of, in the world and beyond a video game might, be beneficial.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
perhaps
University
even,
of Maryland sponsors that drones.
Right, exactly, right.
And I think the base is a wonderful opportunity that we have a partner here that is willing to open the gates to our schools. I've been there on tours, and several of the board members, we've been to the air traffic control tower. We've been all over the base, and they are excellent partners. They had the PEP program, and they are willing to help in any way that they can. Also, where does STEAM fit into this? It was STEM, then it went to STEAM, so where is that component in your program?
So that would be the next evolution. As you know, in October, we held our first STEAM festival. We did integrate arts into that festival. And we do, Mr. Hayes and I work closely with Mr. Burrows, the fine arts supervisor. We really would, because there is so much of STEM in art and art in STEM. And, poetry is everywhere.
Oh, stop, just toss off the side there.
But I think there is room for that. And really looking at, one of the things we talked about is sometimes people get their thoughts on what a STEM career is. And in our community, engineer is what we hear a lot. But it's a wide swath of STEM careers. And by sort of reaching out to all the students and showing them, and I like Miss Bailey's suggestion, because one of the powerful things, as Miss Allen pointed out, about having the guests go in is it's this special guest who they associate with this special thing. So if we can get other special guests, whether we visit them or they visit us, we've had a lot of virtual visits from the base and the other academy programs, to talk about how their career is STEM or STEAM. One of the, I had the opportunity to hear a NASA scientist speak on the night before launching a satellite, and she talked about how she uses more arts. She has a PhD in physics, a 30-year career with NASA, and she uses arts in writing and communicating than anyone else. And I think that's a powerful message that we need to get across to students.
Because you have to harness that inspiration with an 8-year-old so that they devote all of that pursuit of passion and learning to be ultimately able to launch something into space.
Well, and NASA is
it's
the
amazing.
perfect steam. I don't know if you know, they write music and compose, the poetry, if you will.
See, they write
with every
music.
launch, they engrave.
They don't write words to the music.
Well,
Their photography is really good.
So should the program be called STEAM or STEM?
well, right now we're still STEM.
You're still
We're not
STEM.
quite ready to integrate the art, but students do. I mean, there are art components. They do have to make a graphic. They have to make a design. They have to draw it out. But we really don't have too much of an arts integration piece yet, I think, to go forward with adding the A. But it is a possibility in the future.
And every single elementary school has music classes and art
Art
classes,
classes,
and
yeah.
we have been investing more and more money every year in strings and like all of this stuff is offered at all of our comprehensive high schools and the middle schools, and like we are invested in the arts.
In the arts.
As witnessed by the Tri-County concert that we went to. And many of those little kids up there may end up being engineers, but they're artfully singing, and so they're already steaming. They were steaming without us even trying.
We also heard from Ms. Carpenter, she was saying when they left, teachers were sharing with her via email and things like that, that they continued with the lesson. They either had the kids like redo their prototype again, because of course it gets better when you redo a prototype, and they actually had them read about the real lunar landers in the language and write about it a little bit. So that writing and reading piece is real critical too, that we'd like to develop more of also, as well as there's so many possibilities to do. We'd like to integrate all those things.
And I hope you'll also, if the Higher Ed Center, or whatever it's called now.
USMSM.
There you go.
University of System of Maryland, Southern Maryland, USMSM.
That once the third building comes online with the engineering labs, that there may be a place for some connection there as well. It would be good for the students to experience that if possible. That's all.
I wanted to add, kind of embellish on what Dr. Smith said. In World War II, at the beginning of World War II, we were kind of behind the curve in code breaking. And guess who? They used a lot of musicians,
Oh, here
in
see.
code
Look
breaking.
at that, Scott.
Yeah,
Which I thought was quite interesting.
brilliant. Musicians and
Poets.
and musical pattern making, absolutely.
I have one last comment. So, I've always attended like women in leadership forums, panelists. I hear from an array of like women in business, women in tech, women in medicine, women in law, women in engineering. An array of these like women leaders, and they always, when they're doing their panelist story, when they're telling their like, how did I get interested in this field? Why did I pursue this career? They always have like a core memory from their childhood, and this program, the STEM for All, is an example of, in the future these students are going to have this core memory, as evident by the comments. But I'm just so grateful that this program is available at SMCBS and every student is getting serviced. It's truly amazing. So thank you.
Beautifully said, Judy.
Yep.
That's
Beautifully
it.
said.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
That's
that
two
amazing.
tweets. That's two quotes for Judy
Who
on
knows?
her Twitter.
20 years from now, somebody's going to be giving a Pulitzer Prize winning award speech.
Maybe it'll be Judy.
Maybe it'll be Judy.
She can tell about her defining moment here.
Yeah.
This boardroom.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
2022.
Okay, so let's see. Next week at 9 o'clock, we have a budget work session. Fingers crossed.
Be there, be square.
That's right. And then we have a board meeting then the following Wednesday at, executive session starts at 8. The regular board meeting starts at 9. Okay? Anyone have anything else? All right. And with that, we are done. We are adjourned.